After fully analyzing episode 9, I've finally put together my complete theory on everything that happened, everything you might have missed, and what it all actually means for the digital circus. So I ask you to put this video on in the background while you're doing your thing, because that really helps support me. And let's get into it. I think the most logical place to start is right at the beginning, because the episode opens exactly where episode 8 left us, a completely broken digital circus. The floor is cracked, the walls are warped, and our characters are just standing there, not really knowing what to do. But instead of letting all that despair take over, Kinger steps up. And this moment is way more important than it looks at first. Let's remember what Kinger told us back in episode 8. He confirmed that every character in the digital circus has the same ability as Kane. They can conjure and create objects because it's built right into their code. But nobody had actually tried to use it on purpose. And now, finally, in episode 9, Kinger is teaching Regatha and Pomni how to do exactly that so they can repair the circus. Basically, with Kane gone, the characters have become the administrators of their own world. And I think that's the whole point. The digital circus isn't dying after Kane's deletion. For the first time, it's becoming theirs. Notice that they chose Regatha specifically for this. From the very first episode, she was always the one holding the group together emotionally, and now she's literally helping hold the world together. The show built her up to this without ever saying it out loud, and honestly, that's just really clever writing. But while all of this is happening, the show keeps cutting back to Jax. And unlike everyone else, he's not helping rebuild anything. He's slowly pulling away from the group. We already saw exactly where his head was at after episode 8. His fear sequence showed us a character who built his entire personality around a mask because the real version of him was too damaged and too scared to exist without it. And remember that teaser image right after episode 8, where Jax was standing alone, away from everyone, looking down at the floor. Episode 9 is basically the conclusion of that. And what makes it so painful is how close he came in episode 8 to actually breaking through. Gangle defended him. The group made it clear they weren't going to let him wander off and abstract. And for just a second, you could see that he wanted to let them in. But he couldn't. This pattern was already too deeply rooted in his head, and Jax just can't imagine living any other way. So his abstraction doesn't happen because of one big dramatic moment. It happens because he simply ran out of reasons to hold on. With Kane gone, there was no common enemy anymore. And we already figured out that the shared goal of escaping and the shared fear of Kane were the only things really keeping Jax acting like part of the team. The moment that pressure disappears, so does he. And honestly, it's probably the quietest and most devastating moment in the entire episode. After Jax abstracts, the group is left completely lost. But here's where something Kinger said earlier pays off in a way I didn't fully catch the first time around. He mentioned that abstracted individuals become calmer in the dark. When he first said it, it felt like just a small piece of background lore, but Pomni remembered it. And then she does something we never actually saw a character do in the main show. She jumps into the abstracted mind. And before we go further, I want to bring up that YouTube short, the one where Kinger is daydreaming about dancing with his wife, Queenie. Everyone assumed it was just his imagination, but what if it wasn't? What if Kinger had already done this before, entered Queenie's abstracted mind, and what we were actually watching was a memory of that, not just a fantasy? Because if that's true, then Pomni didn't discover something new here. She found something Kinger already knew about, but never explained to anyone. And that changes how we read that whole short. Now let's talk about what Pomni actually finds inside Jax's abstracted mind, because this might be the biggest lore reveal in the entire show. It's not just darkness and chaos like we assumed abstraction was. Inside his head, we see alternate versions of the digital circus. Multiple versions, all happening at the same time. And this is where I want you to remember the code from episode 8. We saw experimental AI agents, other attempts at Kane's role that were started but never finished. And we also know Kane mentioned earlier that the system is supposed to learn and improve itself. Now connect that to what we're seeing inside Jax. What if every abstracted mind is running its own version of the circus? Basically, a parallel simulation. If that's the case, then abstracted characters aren't just lost in some endless nightmare. Their minds are generating new versions of the world, feeding all that data back into the system, helping the AI iterate and get better, just like Kane said it was supposed to. And that completely reframes everything. Abstraction might not be a death sentence at all. It might actually be a second life, a recursive one that the system is quietly using the whole time. Think about what that means for Kaufmo, for Ribbit, for every character we watched disappear. They're not gone. They're running. The show kept treating them as tragedies, when they might actually be something much stranger than that. But after some looking around in there, Pomni is given a key, specifically a key to the version of Jax that we're familiar with. And right before that, we get a look into how Jax's lock key reveals the truth about him. We already knew from episode 7 that Jax was responsible for an accident in the real world, one where someone might have died, but the lock key goes deeper. We see a pattern. The people Jax let himself get close to ended up abstracting, and then he was just kind of left there, like that, every single time. So every joke, every insult, every time he pushed someone away, it wasn't just him being cruel, it was a system he built so he'd never have to watch someone disappear again. And the cruelest part is that it didn't even work. His friends are still gone. The mask never protected him from anything. It just meant he had to go through all of it completely alone. And then we get our host Kane back, and the whole tone of the episode shifts. Kane gets access to our cast's brain files, and we clearly see him rebuild Scratch from scratch. And this changes absolutely everything. Let that sink in for a second. Scratch, the very first character to ever abstract. The programmer whose ideas were so far ahead that even his own team at CNA couldn't understand them. The one Kinger called one of the most brilliant minds he ever worked with. He's back. Not as a ghost, not as a memory, fully rebuilt. And this instantly tells us something that rewrites the entire history of the show. Abstraction was always reversible. Kane always had this ability. So not only is abstraction completely solved, it turns out it was never really permanent in the first place. He could have done this at any point across all 9 episodes. He just didn't. And here's the part that's honestly kind of disturbing. We later learn that Kane does absolutely nothing with this. He solves the single biggest problem in the entire show, the thing every character lived in fear of, and he just sits on it. Because to him, the residents were never people he needed to save. They were variables in an experiment. But here's the theory I can't stop thinking about. What if Kane didn't rebuild Scratch out of kindness or some change of heart at all? What if he needs him? Scratch's ideas were the foundation of Kane's most advanced code, and after everything that broke in episode 8, maybe Kane needs Scratch's way of thinking to repair something in himself that got damaged. The kindness might be completely accidental. He's not saving Scratch. He's using him. And then we get the post-credits scene. Kane removes the other AI. The experimental one, the same kind referenced in that code from episode 8. The one that was started but never finished. But he doesn't delete it. He puts the blue AI in a cabinet, and that difference is everything. You don't carefully preserve something you're done with. You preserve something you might still need, or something you don't know how to deal with yet. And notice that it's blue. Throughout this whole show, blue has always been tied to things that sit right at the edge of Kane's control. The exit, the underlying system. So a blue AI sitting in a cabinet isn't an ending. It's a setup. And it tells us something the show has been hinting at this whole time. Kane isn't the god he pretends to be. He's just managing things. And that AI in the cabinet is a problem he still hasn't solved. So episode 9 didn't just close out the digital circus. It reframed the entire thing. Every abstraction, every adventure, every line of code we tried to break down across all these episodes was building toward a world that's way bigger and way stranger than any of us realized. The circus was never just a prison, and it was never just a game.